Welcome to the Kind Regards Podcast, C-Suite Africa Summit Edition. We are sitting here with someone who is actually quite important to you and me. We're here with Jito Kayumba, advisor to the President for Finance and Investment. Jito, welcome to the Kind Regards Podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure to have you.
The pleasure's mine.
Okay, so we're going to kick off with an icebreaker.
Okay.
So Jito, you went from Kupola Capital,
That's right.
which is a company you founded. Did you found?
Well,
you were at the very early
at
stages.
the early stages. I joined about a year into its existence.
Okay.
So almost a founder.
Yeah, like almost founding team.
Yeah, almost,
okay,
yeah.
and then you transitioned into public sector.
Correct.
I want to know what has been the biggest culture shock for you going from private to public.
I think the first is the stakeholders we have to deal with. It's broad.
Yeah.
21 million citizens.
Yeah.
Because I work for the head of state.
Yeah.
Head of state obviously covers the entire country. And sitting in his office means your purview is very wide.
Yes.
So what that means is whether it's a marketeer at Nakadoli Market in Pitwe or somebody's in Shuangandu or in Solwezi, they are your stakeholder. They are your client. Yes, my main client is the president who I advise in the area around finance and investment, which is around job creation, which is connected to what I used to do in the private sector. But the difference now is the people I report to are not a board or a group of investors, the shareholders. My shareholders are the Zambian people. So imagine the arduous task of dealing with the multiplicity of challenges for many people. But it's also made me more empathetic, right? Because I recognize that I could be talking to somebody as eminent, as important as Dr. Mzingamelo.
Yeah.
Or I can also be talking to the lady selling tomatoes at Chongwe Market.
Yeah.
For me, I treat them the same. I think my appreciation, my respect for them has to be rooted in the fact that they are Zambian citizens. Anyone carrying a green NRC card is my boss, technically, because they elect my boss. And of course, my boss appoints me. So therefore, I should fulfill what's expected of them. So that is the biggest shift, is dealing with issues that are so big and so broad, but recognizing that one has to be patient, one has to be wise. It's not enough to just be intelligent or knowledgeable. It's about applying yourself in a way that it really assesses issues and finds lasting solutions. In my previous life, I was free in the sense that I would walk into a ShopRite, no one look at me, which is nice.
Yeah.
So I miss the anonymity.
Yeah.
I miss the fact that I could even take a walk down the street. Now I'm not sure I can. Because there's all sorts of implications, even security, right? Yeah. Because by virtue of being in a political environment, which is State House, those sensitivities are there. So again, being highly careful, highly guarded, being careful with where I am at. Once in a while, I would go out with a friend, go grab a drink at a bar or a club. I can't do that anymore. I don't do that anymore, Because it's also about respecting the fact that one also has to carry themselves with a certain degree of dignity. So those are among many different things that have changed in my life. I'm a lot busier than I used to be, given the fact that we have to deal with so many issues. But I must say, I appreciate it. I love not only what I do, and I appreciate the president for the opportunity he's given me, but most of all, I appreciate the Zambian people for being my incredible bosses, right? I'm as their servant. And the fulfillment. In fact, that's the last point I wanted to make, is I feel incredibly fulfilled because I could be in a meeting and it's not been publicized, but a meeting that would deliver scholarships to young people to go to a certain country. Meetings that bring in an investment that creates, tens of thousands of jobs. And someone's life will change. And I go visit the site of the deal we help structure. And I'm seeing these guys in work suits who are employed there, and they're so excited, and look at them and say, yeah, this is why we did that.
This is why we did
the sleepless nights, we know that sometimes there's challenges, there's no power on account of the drought. Working hard to resolve it is so exciting. We feel the pain when people are crying because there's no lights at home, but then us getting into the deal room to push, solar, hydro, thermal, also power imports. All of that, and then all of a sudden, no one's complaining about load shedding anymore. I love that journey between the problem and to the solution.
I have to ask.
Sure.
What is the coolest thing about rolling with the president?
The first cool thing is the easiest thing to say. Is just rolling with him already. He's cool enough. Working in the same building as him.
Yeah.
My office is just around the corner from his.
Yeah.
So it just sort of knowing that I can walk up to his office without any barriers, without knocking the door, say, "Oh, Mr. President, I've got this document for you." I love that.
You love that.
And the fact that he's a cool person, a cool boss. I like the fact that he's so human and so humble. I mean, not many people with that much power can carry themselves the way he does. His open-mindedness, his willingness to change his mind based on new information is amazing. He's not stubborn with knowledge. Doesn't believe he just knows it all. He's wise. Extremely. He's the most intelligent person I've ever come across. But knowing the fact that I can say, "But Mr. President, there's also this information." And I'm trying to see how we can see things differently. And he says, "You know what? That makes sense. We're going to go that direction." I love that. So that is super cool. And knowing that my influence in my role, which is my job, my advisory role, enables him to make decisions that moves the country in the same direction, adding to the vast amount of advice he gets from various other advisors and stakeholders within government. So that is super cool. The last 5 years of my life working with President Hichilema, I could literally, I think I need to get a PhD.
You need an honorary doctorate.
No, at least not from any other institution, but just for working under him. Like to say this, it's knowledge that you cannot buy. It's incredible. So those are among the many things that make it so amazing to work with the president.
Amazing. So one of the things you spoke about earlier was how everyone is important, right? And you can see yourself delivering impact for the people of Zambia. How do you think private sector and public sector should be collaborating over the next, I'll say, 5-10 years to deliver that impact to our people?
Now, here's something I really believe. I feel like over the years, public and private sector have not worked well together. As somebody who was in the private sector, I can tell you, we were always, and I've said this on a few platforms, private sector was always treated as an enemy. You're treated with suspicion. What does this person want? They just want to make money. These are bad people.
Nothing wrong with making money.
Nothing wrong with it, especially if you pay your tax. You pay your employees. We create impact. So making money is important for economic growth because all of that stimulus from spending goes into the economy. It touches different people and that's key. So the key now is based on what the government has already done, institutionalizing the relationship between public and private sector through a public-private dialogue forum. We now have an open dialogue where private sector is embedded in government. The president has appointed people who were literally are not career civil servants like me, private sector people into the presidency to essentially be able to help guide and steer the growth in the private sector. I'm a big believer that government should be made less relevant in society because we should, we collect the tax. We should take care of national security, make sure there's infrastructure, make sure there's, basics, water, electricity. Those are, that should be government's responsibility, right? The minute that there's law and order, the judiciary is operational, but the job creation, the economic stimuli, like real economic value should sit in the private sector. A lot of assumption and dependency seems to be on government to deliver jobs. I recognize the fact that we've got a lot of unemployed people who wish to be employed in government as teachers, as police officers, and so many different things, which are very important. But government cannot create other jobs. It is just not feasible. What needs to happen is where the private sector takes a much more leading role in being drivers of industry, where the government reduces its regulation, reduces its heavy hand, and lets the private sector thrive and creates policies that makes it easier for people to access capital, makes it possible for interest rates to be lowered. Of course, we also have a responsibility over the monetary policy. We've got the central bank governor here who's done an incredible job making sure our reserves at an all-time high of $6.5 billion. We make sure the currency is stable so that our traders can import at a decent rate, but also make a good earning on exports. So the relationship is based on, it's symbiotic. We need each other. One should not be seen as superior to the other. It's a partnership, but one that I feel we need to unwind government's role in especially in owning businesses. Guys, we like owning things. Oh, government should own this. No, government actually does not do a good job at owning businesses. Your track record is there. Look at the history of government owning businesses throughout Zambia's history. Just look at the financial statements. As shareholders, we are Zambian citizens, we're shareholders. If you've never received a dividend, if you've never seen a company not be insolvent, then you should, the reality is the opposite is true. in terms of no dividends come through from companies that are purely government-owned. And I know what I'm saying could sound very controversial because we do have a state-owned enterprise, which I respect, I appreciate. I think we should play more of a passive role as investors. We should have shareholding in companies, but we shouldn't be the ones to run it, because that now invites politicization. It now makes it possible for you have an entity like Zesco, which is supposed to deliver value, deliver power, but you find that it employs more people than it should because it's sitting within a political ecosystem. You find that it maybe has 40% more employees than it should, right? But it's coming across as a social vehicle as opposed to be a company that's supposed to generate shareholder value for the Zambian people and deliver electricity. So inefficiency is always there. So that's part and parcel of my own personal view when it comes to government's role and private sector taking more of a leading role as well.
Interesting. I'm curious to see what the comments will say to your sentiments, but
it's just my view. Look, the proof is in the pudding, huh? If you want to see the evidence of something, you see that, you know that if you eat the wrong thing, say you take too much sugar and you know that causes diabetes. And you see diabetes patient because of an action we took, then we should know that we should not take sugar, right? In the case of government, we should not be the ones to run companies, right? Let's be shareholders, no doubt. Let Zambian citizens be shareholders by way of being direct entrepreneurs or being. But that's. I thought I should give a bit more context.
Amazing. So briefly, I would like you to say to our viewers, what's your call to action that people should implement for those aspiring for leadership, whether it's in public sector or private sector? Okay,
let me start with private sector leadership. The first thing is, if you're an entrepreneur or you want to move up the corporate ladder. One is have incredible competence. Focus on a vocation that makes you stand out, that makes you deliver value effectively, efficiently. What makes you rise in any environment is competence. Make no mistake. Yes, it's important to know people. Connections do help you get in the door. And connections are always treated as such a negative thing. But the reality is, having a person who's eminent, a person who's somewhat influential, recognize your talent, they literally will help push you. And once that happens, you leverage on your skill set to drive value, deliver. That delivery is what takes you to the next level. And beyond that, that now builds you into a situation where you're able to navigate through challenges, you're able to build the wisdom that would enable you to be sustainable as a leader. And we're now talking about leadership, because leadership is not only about competence and knowledge. It's about wisdom. It's about patience, understanding. How do you deal with a calamity? Everything's falling apart. How do you keep your team feeling like everything will be okay? You need to inspire confidence. You need to align everybody. You need to build people up. You need to be not too afraid to build your successor. Not only your successor, but build a number of people around you who can essentially not only take leadership in the company for future generations, because we don't sit in these offices forever, whether you're in public sector or private sector. So we have to build a huge chain of people who can take up leadership so that the developmental journey of Zambia could be sustained for the long run. You know, we've seen families where a leader, a breadwinner dies, the business collapses. So we need to have that. The another piece of advice I need to give is optimism. Be optimistic about the future. Have a view that you are capable. That's the first ingredient towards success. Positive mental attitude is absolutely key. The last point, which I'll pull in the public sector, is have empathy. Recognizing that what you do is for the benefit of others. Your actions can change people's life. Be purpose-driven. In my view, in my case, the love and care and awareness of the fact that there's poverty, it hurts me. I don't like unemployment. So working towards delivering value in that area is my purpose. If you're going to be a doctor, deliver value by curing people. Also making sure you're mitigating healthcare crises and the like. So the key is about being aware of your purpose and executing on it. That's my call to action. Amazing. Great call to action. All right. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Jito. It's been a pleasure. Pleasure's mine. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you for tuning in to the Kind Regards Podcast C-Suite Africa Summit Edition. Kind regards, Zamiwe.